You know what? I just finished reading a book that completely pissed me off. Not because it was bad, but because it called out every single way I've been living my life wrong for the past 40 years. It's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And if you're tired of caring what everyone thinks about you, if you're exhausted from trying to make everyone happy, this book review is going to change your life. Hey, it's your friend Neil, and today I'm going to do something different. I'm reviewing a book that I wish I had read 20 years ago. Because here's the thing, we all been taught that caring is good, that giving a damn about everything makes us better people. But Mark Manson argues something completely different in The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. He says that you're giving too many fucks about the wrong things, and that's exactly why you're miserable, stress out, and living a life that doesn't feel like yours. This isn't a book about becoming a selfish jerk. This is a book about becoming selective with your energy, your attention, and your emotional investment. And by the end of this review, you're going to understand why learning not to give a fuck might be the most important skill you never learned. Let me start with Manson's biggest truth bomb. You only have a limited number of fucks to give in your lifetime. Think about that. You wake up every day with infinite amount of energy, attention, and emotional capacity. But what do most of us do? We give fucks about everything. We care about what our coworker thinks about our outfit. We stress about whether we get enough likes on our Instagram post. We lose sleep over whether that person we barely know approves of our life choices. Manson calls this the feedback loop from hell. You get anxious about something. When you get anxious about being anxious, then you get anxious about being anxious about being anxious. Sound familiar? Here's what hit me like a truck when I read this. Every time you give a fuck about something that doesn't actually matter, you're stealing energy from the things that do matter. You're so busy worrying about whether your neighbor thinks your lawn looks good enough that you don't have energy left to focus on your relationship with your kids. You're so stressed about appearing successful on your social media that you're not actually building real success in your life. Now, here's where Manson's gets really interesting. He introduces something called the backwards law, and this is going to mess with your head in the best possible way. The backwards law says the more you pursue feeling better all the time, the less satisfied you become. The more desperate you want to be rich, the more poor and unworthy you feel. The more you desperately want to be loved, the lonelier you become. Why? Because when you constantly chasing positive experiences, you're reinforcing to yourself that you currently lack those experiences. You're telling yourself that you're not enough as you are right now. But here's the flip side, and this is where it gets powerful. The more you accept negative experiences, the more positive you become. When you stop running from discomfort, failure, and rejection, you become free to actually pursue what matters. I had to put the book down when I read this because I realized how much energy I've wasted trying to avoid feeling bad instead of just accepting that sometimes life sucks and that's okay. Okay, this next part is going to sting, but you need to hear it. Manson has an entire chapter called You Are Not Special. And before you get offended, listen to what he's really saying. He's not saying you don't matter. He's not saying what your problems are not unique. Your struggles, your pain, your challenges. Millions of people have faced the exact same things. And that's actually liberating. Why? Because when you stop thinking you're the exception, when you stop believing your problems are somehow more special or more difficult than everyone else, you can actually start solving them. Manson writes about how our culture has become obsessed with being exceptional, with being special, with standing out. But here's the truth. Most of life is ordinary, and that's perfectly fine. The pressure to be extraordinary at everything is what's making you miserable. You don't have to be the best parent, the most successful entrepreneur, the most attractive person, the most popular friend. You just have to be good enough at the things that actually matter to you. Here's my favorite concept from the entire book. You don't get to choose whether you suffer, but you do get to choose what you suffer for. Manson asks this incredible question: what pain do you want in your life? What are you willing to struggle for? Because happiness doesn't come from avoiding problems. It comes from solving problems you actually care about. Everyone wants to be successful, but not everyone wants to deal with the stress. The long hours, the failures, the criticism that comes with building something meaningful. Everyone wants to be in shape, but not everyone wants to deal with the discomfort of working out, the discipline of eating well, the patience required for slow progress. Everyone wants great relationships, but not everyone wants to deal with the difficult conversations, the vulnerability, the work required to maintain deep connections. The question isn't what do you want? The question is what are you willing to suffer for? When I read this, I realized I'd been asking myself the wrong questions my entire life. Instead of asking, how can I avoid discomfort? I should have been asking, what discomfort am I willing to embrace for the things I truly care about? Now, Manson makes a distinction that completely changed how I think about my life. There's a difference between fault and responsibility. Just because something isn't your fault doesn't mean it's not your responsibility. You didn't choose to get laid off, but it's your responsibility to figure out what's next. You didn't choose to have anxiety, but it's your responsibility to manage it. You didn't choose your childhood, but it's your responsibility to heal from it. This was hard for me to accept because I've spent years thinking, what if something wasn't my fault? I didn't have to deal with it. But Manson argues that taking responsibility for everything in your life, even the stuff that isn't your fault, is the only way to actually change anything. You can't control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. And that response, that's where your power lives. Here's another game changer from the book. Most people think motivation leads to action. You get motivated, then you take action, then you get results. But Manson flips this. Action leads to motivation. He calls it the do something principle. If you're stuck, if you're waiting for motivation, if you're procrastinating, just do something, anything. The smallest possible action toward your goal, because action creates momentum and momentum creates motivation. I tested this after reading the book. I had been putting off organizing my office for months, waiting to feel good or waiting to feel motivated to do it. Instead, I just committed to organizing one drawer, just one. But once I started, I kept going. I organized the whole office in 2 hours. The magic isn't in the motivation, it's in the movement. The final chapter of Manson's book is about death, and it's not morbid, it's liberating. He argues that thinking about death is the only thing that puts life in proper perspective. When you really accept that you're going to die, that everyone you know is going to die, that all of this is temporary. Suddenly, the things you've been stressing about seem ridiculous. Are you really going to waste your limited time on Earth worrying about what strangers think of you on Instagram posts? Or are you really going to let fear or judgment stop you from pursuing your dreams? Manson writes, death is the only thing we can know with any certainty. And as such, it must be the compass by which we orient all of our other values and decisions. This hit me hard because I realized how much time I've wasted on things that won't matter when I'm on my deathbed. I won't care about that embarrassing thing I said in a meeting 5 years ago. I won't care about whether I had the perfect house or the perfect body. I'll care about whether I loved well, whether I contributed something meaningful, whether I was brave enough to be myself. So here are the 3 biggest lessons I took from The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. First, be selective with your fucks. You have limited energy. Stop wasting it on things that don't actually matter to your life, your values, or your future. Second, embrace the struggle. Stop wasting. How can I avoid problems? And start asking, what problems am I willing to solve? Your happiness comes from solving problems you care about, not from having no problems at all. Third, take responsibility of everything, not fault responsibility. You can't control what happens to you, but you can always control your response. And your response is where your power lives. This book isn't about becoming heartless or selfish. It's about becoming intentional. It's about caring deeply about the right things and letting go of everything else. So here's what I want you to do after watching this. First, make a list of everything you're currently giving a fuck about. Everything you're stressed about, worried about, spending mental energy on. Then, go through that list and ask yourself, does this actually matter to my life, my values, or my future? If the answer is no, you have permission to stop caring about it. Finally, identify the 3 things on that list that do matter. The 3 things worth your energy, your attention, your fucks. Focus on those. Let everything else go. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck isn't just a book. It's a permission slip to stop living your life for other people and start living it for yourself. You don't have to care about everything. You don't have to be everything to everyone. You don't have to be perfect or exceptional or special. You just have to be selective with your fucks and give them to the things that actually matter. Your life is too short and too precious to waste on things that don't deserve your energy. Read this book. Your future self will thank you. Once again, this is NurseBrain, inspiring greatness one lesson at a time.